Picture this. It's 1937, smack in the middle of the Great Depression. And you've got 15-year-old Mary Alice, a city girl from Chicago, being sent away from everything she knows. She's convinced it's the absolute end of the world. But what she doesn't know is that this 1 year, in a tiny little town with her larger-than-life grandmother, is about to change everything. So let's dive into Richard Peck's incredible novel, A Year Down Yonder.
Better you than me. Can you imagine? Those are the last words Mary Alice's own mother whispers as she puts her on the train. Her destination, some tiny dot on a map in rural Illinois, and the person she's being sent to live with, her grandma Dowdell, a woman so intimidating, so formidable, that even her own daughter is basically saying, "Good luck, kid, I'm glad it's not me."
So, why is all this happening? Well, it's 1937, and the so-called Roosevelt recession has hit her family hard. There's just not enough money or space to go around. Her brother Joey is already gone, working with the Civilian Conservation Corps, so now it's Mary Alice's turn to be shipped off to Grandma's, in exile for all intents and purposes.
I mean, talk about culture shock. You're trading the rumbling L train and a school with 1,000 kids for a town where grass grows in the middle of the main street. Her new home doesn't just lack a telephone, it doesn't even have an indoor toilet. And oh yeah, her grandmother is known for being a little trigger-happy with her shotgun. Welcome home. And if you were hoping for a warm welcome, think again. These are the very first words Grandma Dowdell says. And she's not even talking to Mary Alice. She's talking about Mary Alice's cat and her 10-pound radio. For Mary Alice, that radio is her lifeline, her only connection to the world she left behind. For Grandma, it's just more noise. It doesn't take long for Mary Alice to figure out that her grandmother doesn't just play by a different set of rules, she is the rules. Grandma Dowell doesn't just live in this town, she kind of runs the place, with her own very unique, and let's be honest, often terrifying brand of justice. Case in point, her very first day of school. Mary Alice immediately comes face to face with Mildred Burdick. You know the type. Mildred is the town tough, and she decides that this rich Chicago girl owes her $1. Now, $1 back then, that was a huge amount of money, like a whole week's wages for some people. So how does Grandma handle this? Does she march down to the school? Nope. She uses her brain. She actually invites the bully over, lures her in with food, and then starts casually mentioning all the trouble Mildred's dad has been in with the law. And while Mildred is stunned, Grandma sneaks out, unties her horse, and sends it galloping off in the wrong direction, leaving the bully with a very long barefoot walk home. And this is what makes Grandma so brilliant. After pulling off this perfect cold-blooded revenge plot, she says this. It's this wild mix of payback and bizarre hospitality. You see, with Grandma Dowdell, absolutely nothing is ever straightforward. And this strategic thinking really comes out to play on Halloween. Now for Grandma, Halloween isn't about candy. It's her favorite holiday for a whole other reason. When she hears the local boys are planning to prank her outhouse, she doesn't get mad. She gets ready. She cooks up a batch of glue that could hold a bridge together and sets up the perfect trap. The whole thing goes off like clockwork. The leader of the pranksters, who just happens to be the principal's son, trips the wire and Grandma emerges from the shadows, looking about 8 feet tall in the moonlight, and just dumps the entire pot of glue right on his head. Lesson learned. Okay, so you might be thinking Grandma is all about revenge and clever traps. But here's where the story takes a turn. As Mary Alice sticks around, she starts to see that there's a method to the madness, and sometimes a surprisingly noble one. Take, for instance, the Armistice Day turkey shoot. There's a charity stew sale, and Grandma, of course, puts herself in charge of collecting the money. So when the richest guy in town, the banker, comes up and tries to pay the advertised 10 cents for a cup, Grandma looks him dead in the eye and demands $5. And how does she get away with it? With this one line. In front of the whole town, full of veterans from the Great War, she completely shames him. She reminds everyone of the sacrifices soldiers made. The banker has absolutely no choice but to cough up the $5. But here's the twist. That money didn't go into Grandma's pocket or even to the official charity. No, she secretly gave every penny to Mrs. Abernathy, a local woman whose son came back from the war, blinded and paralyzed. Grandma uses her fearsome reputation like a weapon for good, enforcing a kind of justice the community needs. As winter sets in, we get to what is really the turning point of the whole year. Mary Alice gets cast as the Virgin Mary in the school Christmas pageant. And it's during this whole chaotic, festive time that she finally gets a real glimpse into her grandmother's heart. So, the popular girl at school, Carlene, has this flashy, store-bought tinsel halo that practically glows in the dark. Grandma sees this, and she is not having it. She spends an entire day taking old baling wire and cutting out tiny, perfect stars from tin cans to make a halo for Mary Alice. It might not be shiny, but it's made of something much more valuable: pure hard work and love. And right then, it all clicks for Mary Alice. This is how her grandmother shows love. It's not with hugs or kind words. It's with action. It's with a fierce, protective instinct that says, "My granddaughter will not be outshone by anyone." The pageant itself is pure, wonderful chaos. At the big moment, the doll playing baby Jesus is suddenly replaced with a real, live, screaming baby, a burdick of all things. But the real miracle, at least for Mary Alice, happens when she glances at the back of the church and sees her brother Joey. How on earth did he get there? Well, it turns out Grandma had been secretly trapping foxes all winter long, freezing out in the cold, selling the pelts, all to scrape together enough money to buy Joey a train ticket home. All that gruffness was just hiding this incredibly generous, loving heart. That Christmas is a huge shift. This year, that started out feeling like a prison sentence, an exile, is slowly, surely turning into something completely different. This tough, strange little town is starting to feel less like a cage and more like, well, like home. And the real proof of this change comes at the end of the school year. When it's finally time for her to go back to Chicago, Mary Alice says this: the very same girl who dreaded coming here now cannot imagine leaving. When you look at her journey, it's just amazing. She shows up miserable, scared, and completely alone, but by the time she leaves, she's found a sense of belonging she never had before. In fact, that bond is so strong that years later, after the war, she chooses to come all the way back to get married right there, in Grandma's front room. And in that final, absolutely perfect moment, when the Reverend asks who gives the bride away, Grandma Dowdle steps up and says, "That'd be me." 3 simple words that say everything. She wasn't just a guardian for a year. She became the central, most important person in Mary Alice's life. And that's what the story really leaves us with, right? This big question. Mary Alice's year down yonder had none of the comforts she was used to. But what she found instead was this fierce, strange, unconventional love. And that turned out to be so much more valuable. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is it that we actually need to feel like we're home?